Hanson.
Thank you. Well, I want to give Australian parents examples of what's being taught in our classrooms. 1, you can't tell if someone is a boy or a girl by looking at their genitals. You can be a boy but feel like a girl inside. You are assigned male or female at birth, but this can change. Some people feel they did not get a good match with their body parts, and they don't want to be called a boy or a girl. These are just a few examples of the perverse rubbish our children and grandchildren, in some cases as young as 4 years old, are being taught in our schools across Australia. This is ideological indoctrination, not science, not truth. As a grandmother myself, I know this is causing untold damage to our kids. I'm raising this issue because I'm immensely concerned our children's health and well-being is being sacrificed for a vicious, hateful ideology trying to remake human beings into its own deviant image. I'm raising it to bring awareness to parents. My 7-year-old grandson recently came home from school and asked his mother, "Where's your penis?" "What do you mean?" she asked, reminding him that she is female and females do not have a penis. My grandson then asked his mother, where his vagina was. Troubled, my daughter asked him where these questions were coming from and why. So she asked him. "From school," he said. "School told me that you can choose if you want to be a boy or a girl," he said, and then added he wanted to know when he gets to choose. Let's think of that for a second. He wants to know when he gets to choose. All his life, up for 7 years, he's been told he's a boy. Reared as a boy. He looks like his father. He looks like his brother. He knows he's not like his mother, but now he gets to choose. Now, he knows he's a boy. His parents told him that because of biological sex. Can't change because of words or an operation. I wonder if also the school's teaching him, if he then says he's got a vagina, I wonder if they teach him how he has a baby. Parents and grandparents across Australia, you need to be aware of this. You need to find out what your children are being taught and take a stand against this perversity. Schools and departments call it sexual education, part of the Australian national curriculum, promoting diversity and inclusion. No, this is absolute rubbish. We need to step in now before more harm is brought upon our kids. Whether it be public, private or religious-based schools, this is happening everywhere across Australia, and many parents are simply unaware. Parents are being deliberately kept in the dark. This has been delivered in some instances by a third-party external provider under various names and banners, including the Growing Up program in Tasmania or Respectful Relationships in Victoria, which is now extending to Queensland, New South Wales and South Australia. It is all the same transgender ideology which is pressuring our children and causing great distress and long-term harm. In many cases, no prior consent or permission is obtained from parents to teach this curriculum, and in some cases parents are denied access or visibility on the content when requested. Why? Because apparently it's commercial in confidence. Now, why and how is this allowed? What are they trying to hide? Parents have a right to know what is being taught to their children, and under no circumstances should this be withheld or children told to keep it a secret from their parents. That's exactly what pedophiles tell their victims. Schools do not have this right. Our schools are being perverted into turning our kids into fodder for gender clinics where they're drugged and butchered. Parents are being backed into a corner and having to resort to school shopping in the hope of finding a principal who is willing to intervene and stop this deviancy. Unfortunately, there are few and far between. More and more parents have lost faith, trust and confidence in the educational system and are turning to homeschooling as they have no other option. In Queensland alone, homeschooling increased by 229% from 2009 to 2014.
Senator Hanson, the time for this item has expired and we will now move to 2-minute statements. And I call
Pauline Hanson walked into Parliament with what looked like a straightforward concern about education policy, but what unfolded quickly turned into a fiery emotionally charged moment that has now sparked intense debate across Australia. This wasn't just another political exchange. It was a live parliamentary confrontation where Hanson positioned herself as directly challenging what she described as a growing ideological influence inside schools. From the very beginning of her statement, the tone was clear. This was not going to be a neutral discussion. It was going to be a warning. She began by presenting examples of what she claims is being taught to young children, especially around gender identity and biological sex. According to her, children are being introduced to ideas that challenge traditional understandings of gender at a very early age. And in her framing, this is not just education. It is something she repeatedly described as indoctrination, rather than science or fact. But the moment that truly shifted the emotional weight of her speech was when she brought in a personal family story. Hanson referenced her grandson and a conversation that, in her telling, raised questions about what children are absorbing from school environments. This personal angle immediately changed the atmosphere of her argument, moving it from abstract policy criticism into something more emotional, more relatable, and more controversial. From there, her speech escalated in intensity. She urged parents across Australia to become more aware of what is being taught in classrooms, suggesting that many families may not fully know the details of certain educational programs. She framed this as a transparency issue, arguing that parents should have full visibility and consent over sensitive curriculum content delivered to young children. As her remarks continued, she widened the scope of her criticism, suggesting that external programs and curriculum frameworks are being used across multiple regions. She portrayed this as a coordinated approach rather than isolated cases, which amplified the seriousness of her claims in the context of the debate. However, what made the moment particularly explosive was not just what she said, but how she said it. Her language was strong, emotional, and intentionally provocative. She used phrases that framed the issue as urgent, even calling for immediate action and intervention. This tone ensured the speech would not fade quietly into parliamentary records. It would be clipped, shared, and discussed widely. At the same time, the broader reaction to such statements is where the real tension lies. Supporters of Hanson's position would likely see this as a direct stand for parental rights and transparency in education. Critics, on the other hand, would argue that her framing oversimplifies complex educational and social topics, and risks turning curriculum debates into cultural conflict. And that is exactly why this moment is gaining traction, because it sits right at the intersection of education, politics, identity, and parental control. It is not just about what is being taught